was inspired. Now I'm sad and tired. After all, I've tried for 3 years. Seems like 90. Why then am I scared to finish what I started? What you started. I didn't start it.
This is Steve Balsamo. Thank you, Steve, for agreeing to talk to me about your faith and your spiritual life.
You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome.
The first I heard of you, of course, was because of Jesus Christ Superstar, some years ago now.
It was about half a lifetime ago. I was about 25, so it was a long time ago. But it was such a big and important thing in my life, and I'm interested to talk to you about it.
That'll be great. And I know you now through our work with interfaith and bringing people through Peace Mala, particularly of different faiths to speak with each other, to share faith. How did you get involved with Pam and Peace Mala?
Well, I love Pam Evans, who started Peace Mala 20 years ago. I think she's a fantastic energy, fantastic person, and the work she does, I think, is fantastic in bringing together people of different faiths that wouldn't necessarily sit across the table and have a chat. So for me, I think being more spiritually oriented than religious, shall we say, and enjoying aspects of different faiths, it really resonates with me. Your work really resonates, and getting people to see the similarities in their spiritual journeys rather than differences is really important to me. And then of course the music aspect, and that's how we met with Pam. She's very musically oriented. She's a singer herself, and so I've just really enjoyed the work, and we're going to be producing a CD of some songs that we've all been involved with to try and raise a few quid for the Peace Mala. So that's how I got in touch with Pam, because I've just admired her work over the years and just love what she's about.
Now Pam will be singing on the album as well, as will you?
Yeah, Pam's done a Buddhist chant, which you've just been playing some didgeridoo on, which is just beautiful. So I'm really excited about it.
And some songs that you've written as well.
Yeah, a couple of songs I've written that are quite spiritual, I think. It's funny because I used to be in a band called The Stories, and one of my favourite stories of The Stories is a manager called John Brand, who used to look after the Stereophonics, was very interested in looking after the Stories, and he took our music out to Nashville, and we were kind of a country-ish harmony band, a little bit like the Eagles and Crosby, Stills and Nash and that sort of thing, but with a Swansea twist, really. But he came back and said, people loved it, and said, we really love this Christian band, because the songs, we aren't Christian at all, and I love that. I thought that was lovely, because the messages we were singing about were kind of uplifting and spiritual and generally really positive. But some of the boys just weren't into that at all. But it was one of my favourites.
That wasn't the reason the band broke up, was it?
No, it wasn't the reason the band broke up.
Glad to hear that.
That's funny. We're actually it looks like we're going to get together for a sit down and a drink and a meal soon, which is the first time in a long time. Yeah. So there's a lot.
I know the music of The Stories.
Of course, you know,
beautiful music.
Thank you. But personally, I think as I'm getting older, and moving towards the yawning jaws of death, shall we say. I think
Nicely put, Steve.
it's not mine, I stole it,
Okay.
but I love it.
Yeah.
But the idea that, is there something else? Are we alone? What happens when we go? I'm very interested in a writer called Stephen Jenkinson, who is a Canadian. He came from palliative care. He was on the board of various palliative care organisations in North America, and he wrote a book called Die Wise. And there was a beautiful documentary made about him called Grief Walker. And his take is that basically the West is death phobic, and if we don't start thinking about our own death, because funnily enough we're all going to go, then we aren't fully present in life with both feet. And that really struck a chord, and again his big thing is when we're in the bloom of life to really start considering it. So I've been to see him talk a few times, and he's also part of a musical thing called Nights of Grief and Mystery, and I urge you and people who watch him and listen to check him out. It's just one of the most profoundly beautiful ways of engaging with spirit and where we are and who we are and where we're going possibly.
Where is he from, Steve?
He's from Canada,
Yeah.
I think just outside Toronto. But he's got a thing called Orphan Wisdom. I think that's the website, Orphan Wisdom. He's great. So reading him and as I'm getting older, I'm definitely feeling drawn back to the church actually. And I think why I like Pam so much is that getting to know different faiths and the way that they kind of react and the ideas and the philosophies behind the different religions. I've always enjoyed kind of taking different aspects from different religious practices. Shamanism has been a big thing in my life. I studied with a woman called Jill Peirce for a long time. So shamanism has played a kind of a big role in my life. I'm very interested in that that expression of spirituality, if you like. And I came to it after playing Jesus in Superstar, which was a profound experience in itself, as you can imagine. I was aware that sometimes the voices of the cast and my voice could do certain things to people. Now it was within a framework of a kitsch 1970s rock musical, but of course the subject matter was so poignant and so archetypal. I understand that. However, I was very aware of when I sang certain notes in a certain way, people would start crying or people would react in a certain way. And I was very interested in finding out what that is. And there's a whole science behind that. But just after I played in that role, I came across a woman called Jill Peirce, and she is a voice teacher, and she teaches Mongolian chant, throat singing. It's a facsimile of Humi singing from Tibet and Mongolia, and I was really interested in learning that technique. But what transpired from just going for a weekend of trying to learn how to sing this beautiful ancient technique became, probably a 10-year investigation and conversation with Jill's work, which is profound and moving and deeply spiritual. And then through the voice, especially which is my instrument, I learned many aspects of myself and who I was and who I am and who I'm becoming. And as I get older and I'm listening to my voice and my voice changing, it's almost like giving me old ancient vocal maps, which I learned through Jill's work, is giving me a map back to myself. It's a very weird idea, but as I'm getting older and I'm listening to how I'm changing and my voice is changing, I'm aware of everything else changing and nothing stays the same. So I think my voice is one of my biggest teachers, without sounding too grandiose or glib. I think it's become something that I rely on to kind of point the way, if you like.
Is music itself spiritual for you?
I think absolutely. I think music is deeply spiritual, and I've had some experiences over the years singing that have definitely brought me closer to something, if you want to call it God or the divine. Or I've been lucky to been able to sing in certain beautiful places and halls, and I also believe that places will contain the literal ghosts of the descendants and the ancestors and descendants. So I think that kind of psychogeography I'm very aware of as well, and certain places are designed to open us up, I think. I've sung in certain cathedrals and churches, and the geometry and the sacred geometry is part of us, really. It's part of our sacred geometric makeup. So having a little awareness of that, and then a big awareness of my voice, I've been able to kind of use it, if you like, to get myself into a place of deep connection with place, the sense of place with myself, and then the divine. So I've been, and I think, if I'm honest, even through all the kind of pop music and the rock and roll that I've done, I think I've been moving towards that anyway. And I think as I get older, I think I'm going to be moving towards that, using my voice in a way that's not about, hey, look at me, and I'm a good singer, because it's, that's fun and great, serves the ego and all of that. But I think and again, all of it's ego to a certain extent, but when I've been witness to, when I've been singing by myself or with a group of people, and seeing the reaction that can have in a spiritual sense, I'm very interested in exploring to see what the potential of that could be.
You speak about the ego, and earlier you were talking about the influence of different faiths on you, and it seems to me that when we get underneath the surface of faith, spirituality seems to expose that ego to us in a way that, for people from a Western environment like you and me, though you clearly have a very Celtic-like consciousness of your ancestry and so on, but we've been brought up in this very materialistic environment which bolsters ego. So when our egos become exposed through our spiritual practice, as we meet the Christ in us, or we meet God, we meet the divine, it's very painful, isn't it? Have you found that painful?
It is, and I think to perform has to have an ego base. It has to, because to overcome nerves and shyness and whatever, which I was a shy kid, and so to overcome all of that, you've got to have a sense of there's got to be some sort of ego involved. But you're absolutely right. I think when it comes down to the nitty gritty, and singing for me, even when I was in a rock and roll band trying to be, a pretty boy on top of the pops, and I was lucky enough to do that. But that's all great and fun, and can earn you a few quid if that's your thing. But going, for example, to West Kennet Long Barrow, near Avebury Henge, is a beautiful ancient burial site, and having a little sing-song in there exposed my ego and kind of dissolved it in a strange way, because, and this sounds fanciful and hippie and all the rest of it, but I was aware of all of the ancestors, and it almost woke them up, and I almost felt, and of course this again feeds into ego a little bit, of course it does, but I was aware of, oh my God, there's much more to this than meets the eye, right? There's much more to this, especially with music and singing and connecting with the land, with myself, and with the old ones. So that was the moment for me when I thought, okay, this is more than just trying to be Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Although Bruce Springsteen has a deep sense of spirituality to his songs, I believe. But yeah.
Well, you've described very well the reason I play the didgeridoo, I think. So where I sense that religious labels don't mean much to you, but your spirituality is clearly deep as deep. So, yeah, where does religion come into it all for you?
It's interesting. I've been to church a lot in my life, in various different churches. I've never felt quite at home in any of them. And then ironically ended up playing Jesus, which was again, you know, such a profound experience. And I was 26 at the time, in my full I want to be a rock star tilt. So all of, again, that was the dissolving of the ego, being met. Because we had a lot of religious people, Christians within the cast. And I used to sit with them when they talked about, because they used to have prayer meetings and stuff during the run, and I was very interested in that and interested in learning about scripture. Obviously read the Bible for playing the part and was obviously very moved deeply. And then being crucified 400 times over the year was profound, you know. And I've talked to friends about it who have spiritual leanings, both Christians and other kind of faiths, and it was almost like a burning up of karma from a Buddhist sense. It was almost like I had to experience these deaths over and over again and have people witness the death in a kind of Jungian archetypal way for some sort of progression of my journey through, if you know, many lifetimes, if you want to go to a Buddhist way or whatever. So none of that was lost on me, and that began my inquiry and conversation with it. But I think, you know, and I think there's a lot of control within organized religions that obviously, with the rising kind of secular thinking these days, it shows that it's not kind of fitting in some way. But I think there's a yearning for a connection to spirit or the divine, I think. And as secularism kind of is becoming the norm, I think that loss of connection with the earth or with this beautiful world, and I think, but what I think is happening is that because there's a rise in people's need to help preserve the world with climate change and the rest of it, I think that will almost become possibly a peg to hang some sort of. So I think there's almost going to be a move towards that as almost being a quasi-religious thing. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. So I think, and personally I think, I'm moving back towards the church. I think I'm moving back towards a religious structure of the church. It's been coming the last few years, you know, and I don't know what that is or what that means, really, but I'm going to kind of just walk with it and see what it is. Having had a look at a lot of different religions, if you like, or different spiritual, walk down different spiritual paths, I think I'm going back through a, you know, a Christian door. And it's weird even saying it, and it might be my age or as I'm getting older, as I said, I'm not quite sure. So, but I'm keeping open to the possibility.
Yeah.
But there's, you know, the divine or God or the Great Spirit or whatever plays a very deep, important part in my life and always has done since I was a kid. So,
You're sitting under an olive tree now,
Yeah.
as Jesus of Nazareth would have done many times, and the olive tree is a symbol of healing and of faith and of prayer for Middle Eastern people, and in other parts of Europe, of course, as well. Is there you're speaking about something that sounds to me like an exploration of vocation. What is it you want me to do, God? Kind of thing happening with you.
I do think of it like that, man. I
Yeah.
must be honest. I
Yeah.
do think of it.
Yeah.
And sorry, I do think
okay.
that I've been put in certain situations to see exactly that, to see how I'd react in that. I really do. I do think that.
It's necessary, of course, as you say, to open to the divine, to open to what is, to open to the calling in us. So, do you have a way of praying, a spiritual practice, or is it more ad hoc?
Interestingly, it's been kind of ad hoc. I do. I like walking in nature. I find that very meditative and prayer-like. I'm very into the idea of pilgrimage. I like going to places with an intention. I'm going to go. I've never been to Caldy Island, so that's going to be. I want to take a little pilgrimage out there. I read something the other day about prayer. I've got a friend of mine is from a branch of Christadelphians, and we have philosophical conversations all the time and theological conversations all the time. And there was an invitation to pray every day, 10 minutes. So I've started doing that. And what it looks like for me is and I'm going to, because of my conversations with James, is kind of frame it in a religious context rather than a shamanic one or a pagan one or a old Celtic tradition. So it is a little bit of scripture and seeing what's what. So I'm going to do that because it was like an invitation to do it for 10 minutes a day for a couple of months. So I've started to do that. So I'll see where that leads,
Yeah.
But I love a place in I love Pencloud. I love the Gower. I love South Wales.
Of course, we got the Gower pilgrimage now. Have you been on that yet?
I haven't yet.
So give me a shout when you're ready.
I'm ready to come on that. But I go to Herman Chapel in Pencloud,
Oh, yeah.
and I love sitting there. And I took my little boy recently and said, I think I want to be here when I'm done. And he was like, "Geez, Dad, what the hell?" But I find it so beautiful, that place, and so meditative. And
it's above the marsh. For those of you who don't know, we're talking about Gower, North Gower, and Herman is a chapel on a hill overlooking the marsh. The roof is off it now, isn't it?
It's derelict.
And, but there's a graveyard there and overlooking the most amazing view of the marsh all the way from Pencloud right out into the ocean.
It looks over Crofty, which is another one of my favourite places, and then out towards the estuary and out to the ocean. It's just wonderful. So I go there and I go and sit in the hill, and that area for me, I've been going there since I was not really young. I think about 16 or 17 when I was in college. My mate drove down there once. My mate Andrew from when I was in Gorsine in college, and he said it was the kind of creepy place. And when I went there, I was like, dude, this ain't creepy. This is amazing. So I've gone there ever since, very regularly. And
of course, Gower is full of ancient ruins as well. Llanelin, for example, and St. Peter's down in the woods next to Caswell, where you can find yourself in some amazing spots for praying. Yeah.
I'd love to come on that pilgrimage with you.
Welcome.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
Well, it's ongoing. It began last year, and it's ongoing. But we'll make a time to walk it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Maybe we can film it and
Good idea.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Like the weatherman walking, the religious man walking.
That's a good idea.
Walking with Jesus.
Yeah. Steve, it's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you, Father Tim. So this is Father Tim's asked me to do a little bit of the overtone or the facsimile of the Humi singing that I learned with Joe Peirce.